More expected on arrival. Traffic into Taiwan's main airport is set to peak ahead of Lunar New Year, but will it bring a fresh wave of COVID infections? The search continues, waiting for DNA test results that could confirm the fate of the missing F-16V pilot. $40 billion on the books. TSMC's plan for an unassailable lead in the global semiconductor industry, it already dominates. Losing faith in the rule of law. The first Hong Kong activist jailed under the national security law drops his appeal. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Yin Khvat. With the Lunar New Year holidays just around the corner, arrivals at Taiwan's main international airport are approaching their peak. Health officials are warning that the number of imported COVID-19 cases will likely rise. At the same time, they are working to contain the spread of domestic cases. Bing Wang reports.
Passengers landing in Taiwan for the holidays arrive at an empty terminal. They are among an estimated 8,000 people who will touch down over the next 2 days, just in time to serve 14 days in quarantine before reuniting with family and friends for the Lunar New Year holidays.
高峰应该是在明天后天，确诊的人还是会蛮多的。
On Tuesday, the government made it mandatory for all arriving passengers to take a PCR test and wait for results at the airport. Taiwan's main international airport is doubling its workforce, equipment, and ambulances to accommodate the surge. So far, an average of 8% of the passengers have tested positive for COVID-19. Locally, positive cases of the virus are also increasing. A cluster that originated at the airport last week has now been connected to at least 60 domestic cases. At least a third of those are linked to another outbreak at the Union Bank of Taiwan in Taoyuan. And there's concern that the bank cluster might grow.
过去的经验，群聚感染到达14个，一定会有第二波、第三波的感染。这一次要一个个案一个小组的方式来进行。如果是阴性员工的家人，我们进行预防性的居家隔离5天。
Taoyuan's health officials are still in the process of contact tracing people who visited the bank and dined in the same restaurant as employees who attended the banquet. Health officials have also added new testing stations and vaccination sites to make it easier for people who want to get their shots. And demand has grown. The central government restarted an online registration service that had been discontinued due to a lack of uptake. In Taipei, within 1 hour, 92% of the day's shots were booked. So far, more than 80% of the population received at least one jab, and around 72% have had 2 doses. Taiwan has also officially completed its order of 10 million AstraZeneca doses, with a final shipment of 1.5 million doses arriving on Thursday night, just in time for the surge in demand. Alex Chen and Bing Wang for TaiwanPlus.
The search for a missing F-16V pilot continues. On Thursday evening, rescue teams found what they suspect to be human remains, along with pieces of an aviation suit. The findings have been sent for DNA testing, with results expected later today. The F-16V crashed into the ocean off the coast of western Taiwan during a military exercise 3 days ago. Over 340 personnel and dozens of aircraft have been involved in the search and rescue of the missing pilot. Taiwan's president paid a visit to the family and urges the rescue team to continue their efforts.
搜救的事情做得对，
是，
但是速度要快，
是，
妈妈心里担心。
是。
The first 2 of Taiwan's domestically built rapid mine-laying ships have officially entered service. President Tsai Ing-wen presided over the commissioning ceremony on Friday in the southern city of Kaohsiung. A total of 4 ships will eventually make up the Navy's first mine-laying squadron. The vessels are reported to have a newly developed system that allows them to lay mines quickly and accurately to protect Taiwan's waters. At the ceremony, Tsai praised the latest achievements of the country's domestic defense industry.
再一次展现台湾推动国防产业的成果，让世界看见我们守护国家的决心。我要请各相关单位加强合作，让所有的建案可以 如期如职达成，一起提升防卫作战能力。
Semiconductor giant TSMC published their fourth quarter earnings with record revenue statistics across the board. The Hsinchu-based company has scooped up pandemic-induced demand for the chips that go in a whole host of everyday and high-tech products. But as James Chater reports, it's the billions of dollars they are pouring into global expansion that's putting them well ahead of any competition.
For many companies around the world, the past 2 years living with the pandemic have been some of the hardest in memory. But for one company in Taiwan, the picture has never looked rosier. According to earnings data released on Thursday, semiconductor giant TSMC's net profit was a record $6 billion in the fourth quarter of 2021, which only accounts for October to December. Across the calendar year, TSMC's net revenue rose from $45.5 billion in 2020 to $56.8 billion in 2021, an increase of 24.9%.
It was an excellent year. In US dollar terms, TSMC has grown 25%, which is the second consecutive year where we've seen that type of growth rates. It's far exceeding the wider chip industry.
TSMC is the most advanced chip manufacturer in the world. In this industry, the smaller the chip, the more advanced the semiconductor. And currently, TSMC and Samsung are the only companies in the world that are capable of making 5-nanometer chips. TSMC's wafer revenue is driven by these advanced technologies, which is a 7-nanometer chip or lower. 23% of its revenue in the fourth quarter of 2021 came from 5-nanometer chips and 27% from 7-nanometer chips. 16-nanometer chips made 13%, and 20-nanometer chips and above made the remaining 37%. That means TSMC is making the bulk of its money where they already have a near technological monopoly. But it's TSMC's plans for 2022 that are really making jaws drop. A new plant is already under construction in Arizona, and the company is projecting they'll spend over $40 billion on expansion over the coming year. Most of that is designed to make their already superior position even stronger.
Out of the 40 to 44 billion capex for 2022, between 70 and 80% of the capital budget will be allocated for advanced process technologies, including 2-nanometer, 3-nanometer, 5-nanometer, and 7-nanometer.
TSMC was founded in 1987 by entrepreneur and engineer Morris Chang. Its headquarters are in what's known as Taiwan's Silicon Valley, Hsinchu. The uniqueness of TSMC's business model is that it only manufactures chips, and analysts say that gives it the edge when it comes to technological breakthroughs.
We know that the economics works in TSMC's favor. The bigger TSMC gets, the more powerful TSMC will be, and the harder for the competitors to catch up. So now TSMC is truly everyone's foundry.
But it might not all be smooth sailing. The ongoing global chip shortage that has paralyzed production lines since 2020 has alerted governments around the world to the danger of their deficit when it comes to manufacturing their own chips. That led the US Commerce Secretary to recently say that aggressive action was needed on chip production. In response, the US government has proposed a CHIPS Act, a plan to set aside $52 billion in subsidies for domestic semiconductor production. But when you compare that to the $40 billion TSMC has earmarked for 2022, you get some sense of the national level proportions of the company's cash flow.
And that's a signal of the confidence they have in their business beyond 2022. When you're investing this year, it's typically for capacity that starts to come online next year. And so I think the broader takeaway is that the next 2 or 3 years are going to be exceptional.
Uncertainty has been the operative word in the pandemic era, but for now at least, TSMC feels like a safe bet. Patrick Chen and James Chater for TaiwanPlus.
Yilan County prosecutors have questioned County Magistrate Lin Zimiao over allegations of graft and money laundering. Lin and over 20 other county government officials were interrogated during the early hours of Friday. While Lin, who is the equivalent of a state or provincial head, was released, 6 others were only let go on bail. Prosecutors raided dozens of locations Thursday, including the Yilan County government offices and the Luodong Township offices, where Lin had previously served as mayor. Taiwan's cabinet on Thursday approved a proposal that would see the legal smoking age rise from 18 to 20, as well as impose a ban on electronic cigarettes and flavored tobacco products. The proposed amendments would make it illegal to manufacture, import or sell e-cigarettes. The government says the changes would help prevent young people from trying tobacco products, believing they are less harmful than smoking. The legislature will now review the proposal and vote on whether to pass it into law. Kaohsiung has announced a pay increase for staff at the city's public daycare centres. From January onwards, daycare workers in the southern Taiwan city will get an extra $165 per month, with an added $70 for kitchen staff. Around 350 workers at the city's 28 public daycare centres are expected to benefit. Coming up, we take a close look at the only remaining narrow-gauge train in Taiwan. Details after the break.
Thanks for watching TaiwanPlus. For more great stories from here in Taiwan and around the world, please download the TaiwanPlus app.
台湾最有人情味的地方。
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. We now take a look at some of the stories making the headlines around the world. Tens of thousands of teachers in France went on strike to protest changing COVID requirements and what they say is inadequate communication from officials. The teachers say the government has failed to adopt a coherent policy for schools to manage the pandemic and protect pupils and staff from infection. Testing requirements have changed 3 times in the 3 weeks since Christmas. And teachers say they often only hear about the changes through the media. Teachers' Union says 75% of the country's primary school teachers and 62% of high school teachers took part in the strike, though the government's figures were lower.
La question du protocole sanitaire, c'est la pointe de l'iceberg. Certes, il y a un vrai manque de respect, un énorme problème de communication. C'est la preuve même qu'ils ne travaillent pas avec nous, en fait. On n'est pas considérés comme des partenaires pour travailler. On est des pions, quoi. C'est un peu l'impression que ça donne. Donc cette idée de mépris. Mais le problème, il est structurel.
The first person convicted under Hong Kong's national security law has withdrawn his appeal against his 9-year prison sentence. 24-year-old Yin Khvat was charged under the law on July 1st, 2020, just hours after it came into effect. He was found guilty of terrorist activities and inciting secession for driving his motorcycle into police and carrying a flag reading "Liberate Hong Kong, Revolution of Our Times." Tong's decision comes after reforms to Hong Kong's legal aid system, which allows the government to assign lawyers to applicants instead of letting them choose their own representatives. Activists say it is a sign that national security defendants have lost all faith in the judicial process.
All defense, technical legal defense, will not work because the national security law has infiltrated our common law system, making it nothing but a facade. It is only an illusion of the common law system that's actually existing in Hong Kong. So the national security law actually blocks all possibility of using law and the judicial system as a place to seek justice. The courts, and together with the national security law, has turned the whole judicial system into only a part of the oppression and nothing more.
In a landmark war crimes case, a German court has convicted and sentenced a former Syrian secret police officer to life imprisonment. Anwar Razlan is the highest-ranking Syrian official so far convicted of crimes against humanity during Syria's long-running conflict. The ex-colonel was found guilty on 27 out of 58 counts of murder, rape and sexual assault carried out at a Damascus prison. Razlan was arrested in Germany in 2019 after seeking asylum in the country. German law allows courts to prosecute crimes against humanity committed anywhere in the world. Britain's Prince Andrew has been stripped of his military titles and royal patronages, according to a statement released by Buckingham Palace. Prince Andrew is the second son of Queen Elizabeth II and 9th in line to the throne of the United Kingdom. The announcement came after his failure to persuade a US judge to dismiss a lawsuit accusing him of sexually abusing a minor. 38-year-old Virginia Giuffre says Andrew committed the acts when she was only 17. Prince Andrew will also stop using the title His Royal Highness in any official capacity, with his roles set to be redistributed among other members of the royal family. 2 years into the pandemic and overseas travel feels like a desirable but also daunting prospect. But despite the challenges, Taiwan has made it to number 32 in the global passport power rankings. The latest Henley Passport Index from the London-based global citizenship advisory firm notes that Taiwan passport holders enjoy visa-free access to 145 destinations. The index moves Taiwan up 2 spots from the last quarter of 2021. Japan remains number 1 with access to 192 destinations without a visa. The Taliban takeover of Afghanistan has sent that country to the bottom of the list with only 26. Hubei is home to Taiwan's last remaining narrow-gauge train. In this story, we take a trip on the 40-year-old railway, which still carries sugarcane through a small town every morning.
喂，呼叫，车子要出去了，呼叫。
蹦蹦心，蹦蹦，两车下来，摇来摇去，也摇到台南。开这种农场哈，一望无际那种感觉哈，就是也没有压力。你远远的看，好像天空的天空云朵跟大地连在一块，好像一幅画。开车的时候听到那个烟囱的声音，你会有那种震撼力。放给我爽了啦！那这是我的 logo 145，也是我的那个代表号。跟了好几十年，我那个民国68年进去到现在，他跟陪我到现在，那是我等于是我的嫁妆一样，跟我很有感情。我们的面炉是6个轮子的，在铁道上的面炉，它的载音量很大，它一次可以载300公吨的甘蔗进来。那虽然是老，但是哈，老不服老。我感觉它是个宝。开文车的人的确是很少。我虽然跟我太太讲说，你是很会嫁人的，下一次会开文车只有我一个而已。
很甜的感觉啊，这就是有那个蔗糖的香啊。
足香的，足好诶。
感觉好像我像一只蜜蜂一样，那个味道我一直想再深深吸一口气，哇，这是很舒服。
就是虎尾的味道。
正港人好味味。
We now take you to Taidong, a city in southeastern Taiwan, to learn how a new generation of indigenous people is trying to find a balance between modern life and a traditional way of living. Wei Zhonglu has more.
For 47-year-old Mi Tzu, teaching people how to turn a fallen leaf into a useful everyday item is a mission. It's a method he learned from his people, the Amis.
水染鞘在阿美族的文化里面就是非常普遍的一个锅子，就是利用在地的一些植物来做一个什么汤锅啊。那我们以前早期本来就没有什么受教类的东西啊，就会变成是拿在地的一些食材或是一些用具来做我们想要用的东西，或是竹子，这是我们小时候就常做的事情。
The Amis are one of Taiwan's 16 indigenous peoples. Altogether, they number just over 500,000, making up less than 3% of the island's population. Some 80,000 of them live in Taidong, which has the biggest proportion of indigenous people of any Taiwanese city. Mi Tzu left his community to find work, but after years in a big city, he returned to Taidong homesick. It made him realize how important his roots were. Not longer after returning home, Mi Tzu and some of his Amis friends set up a business to introduce others to their culture through leisure activities and food.
很多东西都是经过几十年以后，你不常做就会忘了。那忘这件事情很严重哦，你忘了你是谁，那很严重呢。如果到我小孩子现在才2岁，那他大的时候，爸爸我是阿美族吗？是，阿美族是什么？我不懂，那就很悲哀啦。所以这种族群的文化不能让它被消灭掉，或是遗忘掉，一定要想办法去把它传下去。
Elements of Amis culture are everywhere in Wuhai's restaurant. She's from another Amis village along Taiwan's southeast coast, but she didn't open this restaurant just to serve traditional food.
我希望来到这边的都是我们的部落返乡回来的，因为刚开始回来一定不知道要做什么。那我们这边也可以就是提供这样的工作机会，然后去栽培你或者是训练你这样子。
One of the people she works with is Awus. He's the first in the village to breed white jay snails, a source of protein in Amis cuisine. They give visitors a guided tour of the snail farm, and a lesson on how bringing food to the table can bring a family together.
通常下过雨之后，晚上你就会看到你的阿公阿嬷、爸爸妈妈就会带着手电筒，就是或者是头灯，就开始去田里，开始去采收这些瓜牛。做一个月光巡逻队，就是带着小朋友或者是在地的老人，可以去了解你的生态，就是食农教育。
Many indigenous people had to move to the cities to find work, but now they are looking to earn a living closer to home.
A form that is more suitable to our modernized world now. That doesn't mean we're changing it or create a new culture, no. It's to find a way to survive, but also to find a way to balance our traditional life and our modern life.
Modern life has made it difficult for Taiwan's indigenous people to identify their own culture from the mainstream. But now young people are seeking to express their identity and preserve their culture by establishing a new lifestyle based on traditional spirit. Wei Zhonglu for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching Taiwan Plus News. I'm Yin Khvat. We leave you with images of the Dakar rally in Saudi Arabia. For more stories from Taiwan and around the world, please download the Taiwan Plus app. Stay safe and see you next time.